Good morning, and thank you for having me. My name is Arnold Martin, and I have spent the past 2 decades as an educator, counselor, as well as a community leader. Over the years, I've worked with students at every educational level, from primary through university, and I've developed a deep passion for helping young people reach both academic and personal success. I'm particularly interested in this leadership role because it aligns with my lifelong commitment to develop programs that empower students, especially those who may feel overlooked or uncertain about potential. I believe that leadership in education, it isn't just always about administration or management. It's about building relationships, it's about creating opportunities, and setting a vision that inspires others to grow. And so when we talk about my personal leadership philosophy, my my approach to leadership is grounded in the belief that true leadership is about teaching, it is about learning, and it is about empowering others. So for me, leadership is not a top-down directive, but it's a shared journey built on trust, collaboration, and mutual respect. I didn't have the words for it, but when I discovered the leader-member exchange theory, this theory on leadership, it totally encompass who I am as a leader and my objectives as a leader. And so I see leadership as a process. Um, it's a process in which I'm both the teacher and I'm the learner, if that makes sense. Every person brings unique experiences, every person brings unique talents and insights to the table. And so my philosophy is that an effective leader recognizes and nurtures those strengths. And so my goal is, as a leader, is to help each team member perform at their best. Not my best, not my expectations of my best, but their best. And that's not by imposing authority, but it's by creating opportunities for growth, opportunities for dialogue, opportunities for shared ownership, shared success. And so for me, leadership is really about building effective relationships. When people feel um, almost lost for words, when people feel valued and they feel understood, they become more engaged and they become more confident. And so at the heart of my leadership is building relationship, effective relationships. And so I believe that empowering others to lead within their own roles, um, because maximizing the potential of the team depends on maximizing the individual strengths within it, that is what I focus on. So, in essence, I could sum it up by saying my philosophy is where I view leadership as a form of teaching, modeling integrity, listening deeply, learning continuously, and working side by side with followership, team members towards a common purpose. And when we lead through collaboration and respect, success is something that we create together. So now it's success, it's this shared endeavor. But in terms of what is it? Ideology and hegemony, that word. Um, Understanding the differences, for me, it came simple because this hegemony and ideology, these are two terminologies that I've been working with for quite some time. And so, ideology, it is a set of beliefs, values, or ideas that shape how people see the world. All right. So it's like how we understand what's right, what's normal, or what's important. It reminds me of that term taboo. And so taboo falls into the ideology. So, for example, in education, an ideology could be no child left behind, or an ideology could be a belief that every student has the right and the potential to learn and succeed. It's an ideology. Now, hegemony, on the other hand, it's about influence and it's about control. So the difference is one group, um, their ideas or their values, they become the dominant, they become the dominant value. And so it seems like it's the natural value of the people, but it's not the natural value. It is the value of one particular group, and that particular group's value, it becomes the dominant value. So um, it's almost like you want to think that this value is forced upon people, but the truth is, it's not forced upon um, most of the time. Hegemony is the value, the values that are that become dominant. They're not forced, but people just accept them because they're the dominant ideas and they don't question them because they're the standard. And and but it's not theirs. And these ideas typically they serve um, that particular group of people. It serves them, but it becomes this dominant value where people now hold it as a standard. And, eventually people think that's what they believe and, and that's what it is. So, for instance, think about working at a organization and the leadership expects um, decisions to only come from the top. So that form of thinking is hegemonic because one, it only serves a particular group of people. And even though other people in the organization go with the flow, it's not forced upon them, but it's the standard and they do it anyway. And this type of thinking, it limits participation, it limits innovation, it limits creativity, and it only serves a particular group of people. It doesn't foster collaboration, it doesn't foster equity. And so, um, how does ideology and hegemony influence my leadership philosophy? Well, um, when we understand ideology based on what I just described, ideology, it reminds me that my leadership should be guided by purpose and values. The belief that leadership is about teaching, um, leadership is about learning, it's about empowering others. And so that ideology shapes how I interact with people. I value collaboration, I value inclusivity, I value shared growth. And so rather than control or hierarchy. My ideology guides the way that I lead. It guides the things that I value. And so, in the same instance, recognizing hegemony, it keeps me aware that it keeps me aware of the dangers of top-down leadership or traditional leadership. It challenges me to avoid reproducing systems where only certain voices matter. It causes me to reduce the risk of marginalizing persons within followership. Um, it keeps me aware of equity practices. So instead, I try to create space for every team member's voice and strength to be heard. Because again, I feel as though everyone has something to offer. So while ideology, it gives me the vision for how I want to lead. Um, and that's with empowerment and lifelong learning at the center of it all, learning from my team members and situations and opportunities. Hegemony, it reminds me to question power dynamics and ensure leadership stays collaborative and not controlling. All right. And last question, what question must leaders ask themselves to remain effective? I ask myself many, many questions, and I love this question. And reflection is a huge part of my leadership. And reflection is something that I do often. And so some of the questions that I would ask myself, I think, whose voice is missing from the table? Whose voice is missing? And so this question challenges hegemonic thinking. And again, I'm big on equity. And so I'm big on, not allowing, the voices of few to speak for the voices of many. And so whose voice is missing from the table? Currently, I'm in the process of putting on a survey that is amplifying the voice of students and their experiences. We've had people speaking, we've had people speaking on behalf of students, but I want to amplify their voices. And so I constantly ask myself, whose voice is missing from the table? Another question I ask myself in terms of being reflective is, am I modeling the values that I expect from followership or from others? To me, leadership is credibility in action. And so, am I modeling the values that I expect from others? Another question is, am I still listening? And so, again, it's important to me because leadership, it loses its power when it stops listening. And so true influence begins with understanding the people that you serve. And when we stop listening to the people that we serve, how effective are we really? And so when we look at, am I still listening? I believe wholeheartedly that effective leaders, they remain great learners. And like I said earlier about being a lifelong learner, great learners learn from team members.